Talking the Tropics update with a certified most accurate weather team at First Coast News.
It's Talking Tropics here, and you might be thinking, it's the end of November. What are we doing? Well, we still have some tropics to talk about. We have some records that took place here in 2025, specifically with Hurricane Melissa. And just because the Atlantic basin's kind of backing off a bit, doesn't mean that the global tropics need to be ignored. In fact, we have a system just off the northern coastline of Australia that's impacting them there on the top end. And we talk with a hurricane hunter, Mr. Colonel Rickard, about what they do and why they do what they do here as well. So kind of a jam-packed 25 minutes here with you. I'm meteorologist Robert Speta, always doing my best to keep you informed and I think more importantly educated in these streams. They're never meant to let you know if you need an umbrella today, more or less to let you know why you might need an umbrella out there today. Today, though, I want to start off with this record wind gust that's making all the rounds on social media. And I want to kind of point out, and I even fell into kind of the trap with this, some caveats with it. So first and foremost, if you haven't heard, the National Science Foundation, that's the NSF, they research and review a lot of records and statistics and things like that. And they just released a paper yesterday confirming that a dropsonde inside of Hurricane Melissa, remember dropsondes are these things that we use to measure the wind speeds inside of storms, recorded a wind gust inside of that of 252 miles per hour, beating out the previous record of Typhoon Meggie from 248 miles per hour, which was a one-off hurricane recon. Actually flew into a super typhoon off the coast of the Philippines. I actually covered that in the Philippines, that one. Monster storm. But remarkably, there was a hurricane recon, or typhoon hunters, they like to call them, out of Guam that flew inside of that one. So this one, though, on November 19th, had that wind gust measured by a dropsonde just towards the south of Jamaica. So what I want to show you right now, before I get into some of the caveats here, and you're probably thinking, how did they measure it? What? Why? Let's talk about what the hurricane hunters do and what the instrument they use to measure this incredible wind gust here. So let's take a look at this video. Hurricane hunters provide a lot of information about a storm, but how are they getting inside? They're flying a plane called a WC-130J, like this one. It's a modified version of the C-130 plane that you might see dropping that red stuff on a fire out west. These planes are tough. They can fly for longer periods of time, and they can really take a beating. These airborne science missions are run by the 53rd Weather Reconnaissance Squadron, which has been flying into storms since 1944. In the cargo section of the plane, there are two different pallets of computer systems that take all of the data from the sensors on the plane's exterior to help determine what's going on inside the storm. The hunters also drop these parachute-type sensors called sondes, which float through the storm, relaying info about the storm's pressure, wind direction, and wind speed. That information all comes together, gets processed, and then is shared through the National Hurricane Center for us to share with all of you. I'm meteorologist Robert Speta, First Coast News, on your side. All right, so with that said, now you know what happened here. The strongest gust via a dropsonde was reported on November 19th, 2025, just prior to landfall inside of Hurricane Melissa. But here are the caveats with this. It was via a dropsonde, which was measured about 100 feet off of the ground. But the strongest wind gust near the surface with a tropical cyclone was Olivia. And you might be thinking, what do you mean Olivia? Olivia was a cyclone off the northern coast of Australia, which, believe it or not, recorded a wind gust, an anemometer there reviewed by the WMO, had 253 mile per hour winds, just a little bit higher. Plus, we've had wind gusts even higher than that on places like Mount Washington and the mountains and places like that. But we're talking specifically tropical, and it doesn't mean it was the strongest. If we rate it purely on pressure, Typhoon Tip from 1979, which was also during a period when hurricane or typhoon hunters was flying inside of typhoons in the 70s, measured a pressure of 870 millibars. So yes, it was the strongest wind gust by a dropsonde, and also holds the record for the strongest wind gust for any Atlantic tropical system on record, but not globally. There is still a few other ones that may have taken it. But I think the key thing, though, from this is, one, it shows that the future of science inside of these tropical systems, because the reality is that winds over 200 miles per hour typically just absolutely destroy anemometers, and even dropsondes have a hard time. You have to like double check the data and everything like that inside just these monster storm systems. And two, it just shows that the hurricane hunters are a valuable resource, because we saw this wind gust and these initial pressure readings and just prior to landfall here in Jamaica, and it was just one more bit of information to digest in the models to help improve the weather forecast and help relay to people that, hey, there's a big, bad storm coming your way. So it just shows, one, the future of science and the research capability, and also the future of just being able to inform people out here who are impacted directly by these storm systems. And Melissa was a Cat 5. Once you get the Cat 5, I mean, the difference between a few miles per hour really doesn't make much of a difference. It's still going to be catastrophic damage. And we've seen that out here in some of these areas where this did come on shore. Just whole towns wiped clean. It is still an ongoing recovery, in fact, for some of these places after that. And in fact, if we just even take that aside, this wind gust measured via a dropsonde, Melissa, as far as the intensity at landfall via the NHC, it had sustained winds of 185 miles per hour, which ranks it tied for first place as the strongest hurricane at landfall on record. Maybe not out in the open ocean, but at landfall. And if we look purely at pressure at its peak intensity, it was down to 892 millibars, which, wow. Now, if you remember, I mentioned Typhoon Tip in the Western Pacific. That takes the cake for global. That was at 870. But 892 is respectable and didn't quite beat Wilma. Wilma was down to 882. 882. But that also was out over the open ocean as well. It wasn't even near land a weekend prior coming on shore. My point is, big storm, powerful here at Melissa, and it was a record. A lot of people are talking about that today. So I want to clear this up, kind of show you the caveats and why this is important. So I'm going to come back in just a minute. We're going to take a quick little break here. We're going to take a look at the global tropics, what's happening out here, what could be happening in the future in the Atlantic as well. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Why do we come here? To reach for new heights, to dive to new depths. You can call it a team, even a community. That connection with others. We all deserve that. So why come here? This is why.
Swing into luxury, where golf and community come home. Located in St. John's, Florida, Stillwater is a premier 55-plus active adult community where golf is in your backyard. This bundled golf course community features a championship 18-hole course, top tracer practice facility, and resort-style amenities. Whether perfecting your swing or connecting with neighbors, Stillwater offers the perfect blend of relaxation and recreation. Live where every day feels like a getaway.
Maybe you're new to all this streaming, OTT, on-demand stuff. You need a trusted news and weather source, and we've got you with First Coast News Plus.
That's some pretty serious cold.
It's your most accurate forecast, your weather impact alerts,
heavy law enforcement presence,
extended breaking news coverage,
and that breaking news right now out of Camden County, Georgia,
and exclusive specials, all on your schedule. So download First Coast News Plus and start watching for free.
All right, friends, let's talk about where we have some tropical weather going on today. We have a named storm off the northern coastline of Australia. Yeah, that's a Category 1 Cyclone Fina. And you might be looking at it going, Robert, that has winds of 45 miles per hour. You're fake news. No, it's a Cat 1 on the Australian scale. I'll get to that in just a second. Right now, though, it is bringing some heavy rainfall. In fact, cyclone watch is in place for a good portion of northern Australia along the top end. That's what they call kind of the coastal areas here. They're tropical, very along the coast. But once this does start to head a little bit further inland and likely south of Darwin, you get into more of an arid setting that can produce some flash flooding for sure. And even Darwin's actually under a cyclone watch at this time. So let's talk about this. So you said 45 miles per hour, right? So the Australia Bureau of Meteorology scale. This is a nice comparison for my friend Josh Morgan. He actually put this out like 10 years ago, just because everybody was asking and saying, "Oh, it's not a 1." Well, they start their scale at around 34 knots, which is a tropical storm. So think of it this way. A tropical storm in Australia is what they call a Category 1 hurricane. A Category 2 is kind of mid-level Cat 1 on a Saffir-Simpson scale. And a Cat 5 starts right around about a middle of a Cat 4. Still a bad storm. It's just so... It's just the way they kind of look at it, and I bet you it's more of a psychological thing. You say Cat 1's coming towards you, you're going to take it probably more serious than a tropical storm. And also, their storms tend to be around the coast of Australia. They don't have much time to build up, and they encounter a little bit different conditions. So they tend to be a bit weaker overall. So the scale kind of reflects that. For example, this specific storm system, if we take a look at the track, at only one point is it expected to, Sunday evening there, as it passes just west of Darwin, is it expected to make kind of the equivalent of a hurricane intensity with winds of 75 miles per hour, 74 being the Cat 1 hurricane intensity. So kind of a little interesting tidbit for our friends out here on the other side of the world in the southern hemisphere, which, by the way, if we go back to that satellite picture, or even I can just scroll over, for our northern hemisphere friends, you might be looking at this too and going, "You're fake news. That cyclone's spinning the wrong way." It is. For us, Coriolis works a little bit different. It deflects towards the left versus the right in the southern hemisphere, which equals a clockwise rotation around their cyclone. So fun little tidbit there for you if you're new to tracking global weather. So yeah, heavy rainfall, cyclone watches in place. Darwin's going to get a lot of rain, but especially further areas further towards the north there on the top end, they're going to be looking at, maybe a foot in spots just because this is lingering, which definitely could result in some flash flooding. My bigger concern would be looking more into that extended forecast as this heads further into the Northern Territory. You'd be looking at some flash flooding in a few spots out there, but very interesting as far as global tropical weather is concerned. Meanwhile, let's walk our way back to the United States. Hey, we're stopping off in Hawaii. What is going on here? Well, no tropical systems in Hawaii, but just a little tidbit. They have a winter weather advisory still in place. It's actually been in place for about 3 days now because at 13,000 feet up, they got snow falling. Yeah, a little weird, right? A little different, a little interesting. I actually know people who skied at the top of Mauna Kea, and this is what it looks like via the live webcam there at the observatory, way up at the top of the mountain. But kind of interesting. I put that in the tropical update because you say Hawaii and you go tropical. Well, Hawaii is great because it's a big mountain and it has all the different kind of environmental landscapes there. I'm sure if you're in Hilo on the Big Island or if you're in Oahu and Honolulu there, the weather's beautiful. Well, it might be cloudy and a little bit of rain because that same area that's bringing the rain is running up the mountains and condensing and freezing and creating that snowfall. Anyways, I thought it was interesting. All right, back to the tropics out here in the Atlantic right now. There's nothing. It's cool. It's literally cool. It's chilly right now. We got a lot of shear to continue to contend with. The shear is going to be the big factor in just resolving any tropical systems. You see the mid-level and upper-level winds going from west to east there across the Caribbean right now. Just putting the smack down on any tropical cyclone development out here in the Atlantic. And I would dare say, and everybody says, well, the hurricane season doesn't end until the end of November. Yeah, but at this point, I think we're safe. We are not here. I keep on forgetting to update this. This is September 15th. We're in mid-November, which is on the right side of that graphic. We have a total amount of tropical energy in recorded history is only like 1% from here on out. The point is, it's like a 1% chance of something developing. And given the amount of shear and just everything going on out there in the tropics right now, we could put a pin in it, and I think you can start saying, "Hey, we're pretty good. We're safe out here at this point." But still, guys will always keeping an eye on it. Also on the West Coast, we got a little bit of a low, not tropical, but creating some flooding for our friends out there into California. They got a nice little atmospheric river going on, so you don't need a tropical system to see some flooding. We got that happening on that side of the world, and that area of low pressure that's been impacting that area is working its way towards the east and actually could bring some severe weather across central areas of the United States, and maybe even the slightest chance of rainfall heading into the weekend across the southeast, where we have an ongoing drought going on. So coming up at First Coast News at noon, noon and also every day at noon and every day at 5 and 6 and 7. We always talk about, what the forecast is. And we'll talk more about that, chances of some precipitation in the extended forecast there. Before now, though, I'm going to leave you with a break here, and we come back. I have a very interesting and educational sit-down with Colonel Rickard. He is the head of the Hurricane Hunters, out of Keesler Air Force Base. And he talks to me about, how many storms he's been through, and I guess in the end, why they do what they do. So we'll be right back, and you can see this really interesting conversation with a hurricane hunter.
Cut the cord, get the app, stream free. Download the First Coast News Plus app, your trusted source for news, your weather, all your sports, and so much more on your time. Your schedule. It's your most accurate forecast, your weather impact alerts, extended breaking news coverage, and exclusive specials at a time that is convenient to you and your family. Download First Coast News Plus and watch for free right now.
I knew I needed physical therapy to be able to get back to doing the things I want to do, specifically golf.
Throughout Brooks Rehabilitation, with the 50-plus locations we have, we see people with many injuries across the board. We're really looking to individualize a treatment plan and create goals together. That way they can get back to the sport or activity they love to do.
I would definitely recommend Brooks to anyone who needs physical therapy. It enabled me to get back on the golf course to do what I want to do.
Nothing breeds competition and camaraderie in a community like sports. It gets your adrenaline up. Sports has a unique way of bringing people together. Your First Coast sports team understands that. We go beyond the X's and O's and to the heart of the game, where wins don't always make winners and the L's don't necessarily make losers, and where the highlights sometimes mean more than the trophy. It's where the real stories are told.
Sports Finals sponsored by Farah and Farah, Sunday nights at 11:30 and streaming on First Coast News Plus.
Make that forecast that much more accurate. But who is flying these planes into the middle of the hurricanes? Well, I had the opportunity to talk to one of the hurricane hunters, that is Colonel Ryan Rickard, about why they do what they do.
So, I mean, we all know that it started very, very early in the middle of World War II. There's no replacement for it, really. There's nothing that can provide the data that the aircraft can provide. There's no observations over the ocean that, with aircraft flying through it, the aircraft is equipped with weather information and sensors that is collecting that, and then we're disseminating it. So it's truly vital for the Hurricane Center and for the meteorologists and the forecasters in the West Coast, as we've expanded our winter season mission too, where we're collecting atmospheric data over data sparse areas.
All right, so let's say you're going to go fly into a hurricane. Could you take me through a day in the life of a Air Force hurricane hunter that is going to be going out and going into a storm?
So really, it starts the day prior. The day prior, the Hurricane Center asks the aircraft units if they can support whatever they're asking, requirements for flights for whatever storms are out there that we can reach from whatever base we're at. And then that basically sets the stage for the crews getting built, people volunteering for a flight at whatever time. And then they go into a crew rest. They have to have a 12-hour period prior to their flight where they're resting and being ready and basically getting the sleep that they need in order to conduct that mission the next day. And then basically roughly 3 hours prior, you'll get alerted to come in to the unit and go prepare and go out on that flight. And about 2 hours, everyone arrives 2 hours prior to the flight. And then you start collecting the information. You start providing the crew what we're going to do, where we're going, etc. And then about that takeoff time, that's when everybody's on the aircraft, you're taking off and you're heading towards the location where you're going to hunt that storm or basically collect all the data for that storm. And the missions can run anywhere from 6 to 12 hours. It just depends on how far it is to get to that. And then basically what the Hurricane Center has asked us to do, if there's certain different things, objectives they have us basically finding out.
The planes that the Hurricane Hunters use are unique. They have a lot of special equipment on board, but what's interesting is that they are not much different from normal military aircraft.
Yeah, so the misconception is that C-130, the C-130s that we have 10 of them, are built differently and like reinforced or armored or do whatever. That they're not. They're actually not. They don't have extra steel plates or anything extra on that aircraft to make it more safe. They do have weather instrumentation on it, which that's where the WC-130 comes from. That W means weather, so it's weather configured. We have instrumentation. We have the crew on there on board to collect that information and provide it to our customers. The one thing I will say that it does, it has the nose radar on there, just like other C-130s, but we have a software that enhances it, that allows us to determine, I would say, it allows us to determine whether or not there are tornadic signatures. It helps with the reflectivity of it and gives us more fidelity of what's actually happening in front of the aircraft.
So who is flying into these hurricanes? It's a lot more than just the one pilot.
Yeah, so we have two pilots, the aircraft commander and then a co-pilot. They're obviously flying the aircraft. We also have navigators on our airplanes. There used to be a lot of navigators across the Air Force and C-130s and other aircraft. They've really basically cut back on that, but the navigator provides a crucial role in ours where they're looking at that radar to help assist us and tell us what might or might not be good things to fly through, et cetera. And then we have the flight meteorologist and then the load master, the drop zone operator in the back. They're the ones that are collecting all the data. The meteorologist is telling the load master where to drop those signs because they're not technically weather experts or have weather backgrounds. They're basically just following orders on what we want to do. And then we are basically, the meteorologists are conducting the entire mission and meeting the objectives of the customers, telling them where we need to go next or what we need to do next. And then we're ensuring that weather information that's getting sent off the airplane is, as accurate as it possibly can be.
Now, I guess my next question is about in-flight. So how many, if you know this number offhand, I bet you do, how many storms have you penetrated? And what is the one that you were like, oh, okay, all right, hold on. And maybe like you lost a little kind of color in your face or anything like that.
I actually do not know the exact number, but I know relatively. I've been through hurricanes roughly 150 to 175 times, somewhere in that range. Last year I went through, I think, 31 times a hurricane penetration. So I'm getting up there. I've been there for 10 years, so I have quite a decent amount of experience in doing it. And then I would say there's been a handful of wow or oh my, moments, but the one that I've been kind of harping on while I've been here is the Hurricane Irma experience. Kind of flew it 3 or 4 times in its beginning stages, all the way up to Cat 5. And when it deepened and it hit its peak intensity, that was one of the ones that I was just like, oh my gosh. It was really rough and it was near land, so we got rocked pretty good.
So what advice from a hurricane hunter would you have for the general public?
A lot of the times the general public doesn't really understand, what impacts they're going to experience at their house or in their area that they live. So, the best way to understand that is to listen to their local emergency managers and the communicators and the leaders of their community to tell them, hey, if they're telling you to leave, you really need to leave. it's a freebie. Leave. Why would you stay? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make sense to me that to ride a storm out when you really don't know what's going to happen.
So I want to say a big thank you to Colonel Rickard for talking with me about how the hurricane hunters operate. If you want more information, be sure to stop by firstcoastnews.com/Hurricane Central. I'm meteorologist Robert Speta.